What's up, my ninjas? I'm Stratton, and I'm back with a movie review. Amazing Spider-Man 2. Good God, Sony. You got most of this right. First, we got a dope-ass Marvel movie, and then Sony does Marvel justice with Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm going to give you guys the synopsis, as if you guys don't already know, and then I'm going to go into the criticisms that I've seen, and then I'm going to tell you what I think. The synopsis is really pretty simple. If you're familiar with Spider-Man, you know there's a particular arc that is, like, dubious, for the killing of one of Spider-Man's, well, his first love, essentially, which is Gwen Stacy, who is the girl we've seen him with already in the, Amazing Spider-Man. This movie centers around their relationship right after graduation from high school, starting college, just like Spider-Man 2 from the Raimi days. And we're seeing kind of the after effects of Peter's promise to Gwen Stacy's father, Captain Stacy, that he would stay away from her to avoid drawing her into his battle to protect New York. Peter's old friend Harry Osborn comes back from abroad. His father, Norman Osborn, who is the head of Oscorp, who's ailing, is dying, and he reveals to him that he has all this research that he did, and he wants to give that to his son so that his son could cure this disease that is supposed to be genetic. So there's a disease, I forgot the name of it, everything went by so quickly. I'm probably going to watch it 2 more times and then I'll have a perfect name for it for you. But essentially, it's the reason why Osborn is obsessed with genetic research, why he's obsessed with, using animal DNA and mixing it with human DNA to do things or give human beings abilities that would help them be impervious to disease and injury and such. And that's what Oscorp has been building, its reputation and all of its, reputation on. Norman dies. Harry takes over Oscorp, but it's not an easy thing because there's people within Oscorp that want to take it away from him. In the middle of this, you have Spider-Man, who's now almost like a celebrity. He's all over New York, saving people, doing everything. He comes across a man named Max Dillon. All of us comic book heads, we know that's Electro, played by Jamie Foxx. He saves this guy, and then the guy becomes almost stalkerish with his obsession with Spidey. He has a shrine to him. He's having imaginary conversations with him. It's almost like the good impression to the umpteenth degree. So Max Dillon is already kind of crazy. You feel sorry for him because, dude just needs a friend, probably a couple therapy sessions and he'd be straight. Probably a better job too, like a job where he's actually kind of important and he's heading whatever the team is. Anyway, one thing leads to another. On the day of his birthday, he's forced to stay behind and fix something having to do with the electric grid. He's in a room full of all these experiments, one tube full of electric eels and probably chemicals and whatnot. He slips, falls in. Electro's born. Also in the beginning, you have a quick scene, and they did exactly what I had mentioned a long time ago, that it always happened in the comics, where the movie or a book would begin with Spider-Man thwarting one villain, even though the focus of the particular issue or arc might be another villain. It's just, he's a superhero, so daily, this is what he does. He's stopping Paul Giamatti as the Rhino. It's pretty good. I mean, the fights between that scene, it's pretty nice to see Spider-Man all over the place, to see his agility showcased in multiple ways. It's fun to see. I'm not going to go into it because I said I'm going to do that after I give you the synopsis. Essentially, all these things start to take its toll. You see Peter kind of feeling kind of like, I want to protect Gwen. I want to honor what I said. I don't want to be that kind of guy. They kind of break up. They, Peter's still searching for clues and answers to what happened to his parents. What did they do? And then there is a revelation about what happened to his parents. The movie actually, and I should have said that earlier, the movie actually begins with kind of a 100% explanation for what his father was actually doing, which is actually competent. I'll go into it more towards the end. But anyway, all these things lead to a huge confrontation between Spider-Man and Electro. Electro is pushed over the edge because you can kind of hear that the electricity flowing is giving him voices. He's hearing things. He's kind of not thinking straight. And because of the fact that he's already kind of, I don't want to say mental, but he's kind of losing it anyway. It's not a surprise that he turns fully, crazy. Spider-Man's trying to talk to him. The cops shoot at him. The way the cops always do. They don't listen. And it was kind of funny because it's like, look, now Electro's black. So they didn't even wait to see what was going to happen. They're just like, if he moves, shoot him. I was like, wow, that's fitting. So for all you geniuses out there that want to complain, New York City cops doing what they do best. Shooting at black folks. Except this time they didn't empty a full clip on the dude. They tried to. They got off a couple shots, but they hit him with a sniper round, and this pretty much sends Electro apeshit. Spider-Man stops him, but at the cost of one of his web shooters. They put Electro in Ravencroft. They're doing experiments on him to figure out where he came from, what happened. Oscorp is trying to cover up that Max Dillon ever even existed because he was an employee of Oscorp. Harry is trying to figure out what's going on, and he stumbles across he was the information he was given from his father. It was in a I don't know what you would call it, this cube-like device. It looked like a hard drive or something. He drops that on his desk. His desk has one of those cool, what do they call that stuff? The touchscreen displays on it. And all this information pops up, but it's only the tip of the iceberg. Later on, he learns about more stuff. Excuse me, which, ends up helping him out. I'm sorry. I've had a very, very busy day. This was kind of a pleasant surprise. I'm going to be real quick about how things wrap up. But like I said, he comes across, one way or another, he comes across information that kind of reveals the true nature of the experiments that Oscorp has been, holding or conducting, and what they were actually, what the research is actually for. Spider-Man, or Peter, actually finds out what his parents, what his dad was up to, firsthand. Him and Gwen are kind of working out their issues, but you find out Gwen gets accepted into Oxford, so she's about to go all the way to freaking the UK. So you're wondering, what the fuck, what's going to happen, And there's enough kind of changes, I want to say, to the story that was going on initially in the old comics. You have to remember, this is a story from the 1960s. Or maybe even the 70s, but it's around that time. I didn't bother to look back. It's been a long time. I have the issue actually where Gwen Stacy dies, and I have another thing. What was it? Because I never read that particular one. I always read my Spider-Man saga, which is really cool because it pretty much takes it takes from the, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko years all the way to when Todd McFarlane was drawing Spider-Man, and it kind of sums it up so you understand in chronological order what Spider-Man was doing from point A to point B. It lists all the important loves, all the important breakups, all the the ups, the downs, the team ups, all that shit up to McFarlane. In the end, Harry comes across he lets Electro out, he rescues Electro from Ravencroft. The two of them team up. They break back into Oscorp, which was kind of taken from Harry, without me giving away too much. I mean, there's spoilers, but I'll go into more detail when I give you my explanation and my feelings on the film. And they find all the experiments, and Harry is injected with the Goblin Serum, which was supposed to heal this disease that he had, which throughout the film he's actually showing symptoms of. And he wants Spider-Man's blood because he figures, after he figured out that there was research involving, genetically engineered DNA on spiders and other animals and whatnot, he sees Spider-Man, puts two and two together, and he's like, dude, this guy's blood could actually cure me. I want his blood. Spider-Man refuses, so this kind of sends Harry into his vengeful mode. Anyway, all those other things happen to Harry. He teams up with Electro. After Oscorp is kind of taken from him, they go back. They find his father's, pretty much it's the Sinister Six. But they're gears. They're like exoframes almost. You know what I mean? And he finds all that shit, and he's given the Goblin Serum kind of by force. It heals him for a little bit, but then it starts doing more to him, which is kind of what is... He's told this right before it happens. He finds the suit, this special suit, which was supposed to be for military use, which is heavy armor. It has the ability to heal injuries and repair, damage to the human body within. So he jumps into the suit, and it's repairing all the damage that the serum was doing to him. The serum obviously is making him crazy, though. And the thing, one of the things that is really obvious, at least to me, is that a lot of these characters that do turn into villains already have mental illness to begin with. So it's not a surprise when they turn bad. At least it wasn't for me. I didn't need a whole, hour-long origin story about the villain to make it clear that something was wrong with these guys before they make their transformation into, the villains we all know and love. The stage is set. Essentially, Peter has to fight Electro, who there's like a subplot about Max Dillon creating plans for this power grid, and then Oscorp just stealing it and using it, making it, and not crediting him. So when he becomes Electro, he's pissed about that. And he's trying to take it back. So that's the stage for the fight between Electro and Spider-Man. There's also the idea that when Electro gets his powers, he sees himself on all the screens in what looked like Times Square, and he had never been seen by everybody. He just wanted to be recognized. So during that scene, all this drama happens, and then all of a sudden the tide turns, and the people aren't looking at him anymore, they're all looking at Spider-Man. So in a really obvious way, they show that the spotlight was taken from Max Dillon by Spider-Man, who then defeats him right there, after he said he was going to help him, and he becomes kind of, vengeance craved or vengeful against Spider-Man. It's very simplistic, but it's very obvious, and it's written this way because you already know dude had mental illness, you know what I mean? It's blatantly obvious. So, anyway, back to the synopsis. Electro fights Spider-Man. Spider-Man beats Electro with Gwen's help. Green Goblin shows up. He attacks Gwen. There's this fight. Gwen Stacy dies like you knew was going to happen. And she dies in very similar fashion to how she did in the comics. I mean, the location was different, of course, but she dies, And it's one of the emotional beats in the movie. It's probably the strongest emotional beat in the film, where you're just like, damn, you feel it, And it's a very long scene too. But the sense of urgency is there, and you feel it. It's well acted. It's well executed. The situation even feels like, fuck, what are they gonna do? How is he gonna save her with all this shit going on? So the prologue is that 5 months go by after Gwen's death, and Peter hasn't been Spider-Man. Criminals have been doing all kinds of shit, and New York is kind of like, where's Spider-Man been? You know, what happened? And the movie closes with the Rhino. You hear he was broken out of the vault, which is kind of like a maximum security prison for extreme offenders, you know what I mean? Like guys that did crazy shit. They're really dangerous. Now he has a mechanized suit, and he's wrecking shop, you know, in Midtown or something like that, you know, but he's wrecking shop just all over the place, and the cops can't deal with him. Anyway, they show you, you know, the scene of the crime or the scene of the disaster, and a little kid in a Spider-Man suit comes out and tries to stand between, he tries to stand up to the Rhino. Peter's at home kind of moping, well, grieving. I shouldn't say moping, because this actually feels warranted, you know. He's grieving. Then he listens to Gwen's speech that she made during their graduation ceremony in the beginning of the film, and it kind of gives him that, coupled with a motivational you know, talk with Aunt May, kind of gives him the motivation to kind of try to move forward and go back to being Spider-Man, so he can provide hope, which is the theme of her speech. He goes back out to provide hope as Spider-Man for the people of New York, and possibly the people of the world, but right now just New York. So he appears behind the kid who's standing up to Spider-Man, much to his mother, or standing up to the Rhino, much to his mother's dismay. The Spider-Man shows up behind him and thanks the kid for standing up, you know, taking up for him while he wasn't there. So then he, you know, makes fun of Rhino, and they jump into battle, and it looks like Spider-Man's about to wreck shop with Rhino. And that's the end. The movie's really well done, in my opinion. I've read a bunch of reviews, and I don't get their criticisms. The movie was written almost like a TV show, where the pacing, the foreshadowing, everything, all the tools used, all the tricks used were extremely simple, so even the most layman of people could figure out exactly what the fuck is going on. You don't have to have a degree in film. You don't have to be a psychologist. Nothing. Everything is real simple. I mean, simple shit like Peter and Harry were friends back in the day. You are meeting them so many years later. And you even see that they had kind of a very natural chemistry between the two. It doesn't feel forced. You don't need an origin story for everything. And I think a lot of moviegoers have been trained, when it comes to superhero films, to need an origin story for everything. That you always hear a common criticism for superhero films, no matter if this is the first film, the second film, or the fifth film. Oh, this character wasn't very well developed. Not every character needs development. You know what I mean? People said Rhino wasn't well developed. Rhino wasn't even important. He's just a face character who happens to be a thug. He's a very famous thug. So there's not really much of a reason for them to develop him past what you saw. You saw him doing the only thing that Rhino does. Would it have been funny to see, I don't know, a half hour more of this character? Yeah, but I think he would have overstayed his welcome, because he's kind of a one-trick pony. Rhino's an idiot. That's how he was written in the comics and everything. So the fact that they made him an idiot in this, it's awesome. The fact that he was a Russian mobster type dude, or gangster type, it was awesome. You know, it's a nice little change. And that's another thing. All the changes in the film, I didn't have an issue with any change. You know how in the first one it was like Peter Parker's cool now and blah blah blah. In this one, Peter Parker just seems normal. Maybe he has some geeky interests, and maybe his jokes and his sense of humor is a little, dorky, but like on the outside, he just seems normal. He doesn't even seem as emo as he did in the first one, The action sequences, while they weren't as choreographed as the ones in the Raimi Spider-Man films, they did a good job. These felt as kind of spontaneous as excuse me, as like fights in Spider-Man books actually feel. You didn't see him doing like capoeira moves or freaking low stance kung fu or some shit like that, or like boxing or jeet kune do or something like that. You didn't see any of that shit. You just saw him, grabbing things and swinging them at folks, or choking guys, or just punching them. You know what I mean? It was real. It was like superhero fighting, basic superhero fighting with no martial arts, and I loved that about it. His web swinging, oh my god, someone actually sat there and thought about, like, how would you move from point A to point B if you were using webs to propel yourself? And it just worked. I mean, I didn't think you could kick the shit out of the Raimi films for, web movement, and they kicked the shit out of all three Raimi movies, just everything felt, tonally, it felt like the actual Spider-Man comics. Like, this is a world where I could see Venom being in it, and it being kind of violent, Venom or even Carnage. And I could see it being really that particular arc. I could see it happen, and it would feel right with Mark Webb directing. There was a very it's a dark kind of situation, but it's a PG-13 film, so as long as they're within the bounds, I could see it happening, imply a lot of things, but we're jumping ahead. But that's not what my point is. My point is, this is probably the darkest Spider-Man universe that we've had so far. I mean, we've only had one other try, you know what I mean? That counts. I'm not talking about the 60s films and the TV show and all that stuff, or the Toei Spider-Man that didn't make any sense. I'm talking about, like, as far as movies that actually feel almost like comics, this is the closest we've ever gotten to that. And it's just the right tone. Spider-Man's quippy and jokey, but he's kind of hiding a lot of pain, you know what I'm saying? It's like he does this for everyone else and not so much for himself. So a lot of times he's denied what he's supposed to get. But, if you're a long-time Spider-Man fan, he's going to get it, because Mary Jane is going to show up, and she is that girl. She is the girl. We all want a girl that's going to be down to protect and to fight with us, you know what I mean, and be by our side no matter what, and that's Mary Jane. So, for all these weird reviews that I read where people were like, they killed off the only thing we really cared about. That is the point. At this point, Spider-Man's still kind of cocky. He's in his groove, and then this kind of fucks up all his shit. I heard Electro, people said he made a turn like the Riddler in Batman Forever. Like I said, clearly this motherfucker was crazy to begin with. It's a very straightforward story told within the framework of like a TV show episode. Things happened. The next step was for the bad guy to get mad. I mean, like, a lot of things happen to this guy who's hearing voices in his head once he gets these powers. So, I mean, what more do you need to understand that the motherfucker's crazy? So, his logic is going to be flawed. So, when he becomes a villain, all the signs may not necessarily point to villainhood, but that's what he chose because he has mental illness. I mean, what more do you want? The puns. How could you be mad at a Spider-Man film with puns? I'm not even going to give that one any merit. I heard people complain about just changes and stuff, saying how, like, you know, we needed more time with Peter and Harry. Why? This is your 5th Spider-Man film. 5th. If you went to see this, chances are you saw the others. Why do you need that explained all over again? The only gripe I have with this film is that Electro was made out to be kind of a big deal, and then he kind of, I mean, he was well done and he's well acted, but he kind of like showed up, did his thing, and then it felt like in the middle of the movie they killed off Electro. I mean, I know it was closer to the end of the film, but just the way things were paced, everything was building and building and building and building and building to the almost end of the film, and then all of a sudden Electro's dead, and then the Goblin shows up, and you're like, damn, really? I didn't like that. I almost wish that the whole Goblin thing was more of the plot, and Electro was a separate something. It just felt a little like a lot of people have said it, and I agree, it feels like they forced, the studio said, we have to have the Goblin and Electro and Rhino in there so you could get 3 of your 6 in one film, you know? I don't know. That's a nitpick, but that's the one thing I felt. But everything else, I mean, I don't see why you would complain. The movie was enjoyable. The score, people said the score was generic. By this point, the Dark Knight's score is generic. I mean, there's 2 movies that have just about the same music. You know, matter of fact, of the 3 films, they have about the same music with the exception of a handful of, you know, specific tracks and, like, intro or, you know, theme songs for certain characters. This was completely different from most of what Hans Zimmer does. The fact that he was working with Pharrell and what are they called? The Magnificent, what are they called again? I don't know why I'm losing the Magnificent 6. You can tell there's a different feeling and a different sound, and I dig that. It's more than what we're used to. The fact that there was like dubstep mixed in, and it happened on cue with certain sound effects whenever Electro was actually around. Because if you didn't know, Electro is actually a style of music. So the fact that they took electronic, you know, elements and mixed that with the orchestral, it helps make the theme very unique. I mean, when was the last time a black character showed up in a film and had an electronic theme? Blade. That's it. And Blade's theme wasn't necessarily, you know, electronic. It was just the song that played during Blade's fights was electronic. So, you know, I don't know what people are talking about. Spider-Man actually had a theme in this film. Like a theme you could remember. I mean, I was humming it to myself. I was about to pick up my freaking, you know, Marvel Legends Amazing Spider-Man and start swinging him around humming that theme, you know? Because I was like, man, this is actually cool. And it's a freaking horn. You know, Daily Bugle, come on, guys. Like, I don't understand all these negatives coming from such a well-done film. So first we get Cap, which was freaking awesome. Probably the best Marvel movie so far. And then Sony makes a movie good enough to fit in the Marvel framework. I like it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I think a lot of what was done was right. I wish that they kept in, what's her name? Shailene Woodley as freaking Mary Jane. I think she's freaking fine. And she would have been perfect. The fact that they cut her scenes and then they're recasting her, what'd she do? Curse out Mark Webb or something like that? It doesn't seem likely. But, you know, whatever. It's their loss. Hopefully we get someone fine enough and, you know, a good enough actress to pull off Mary Jane, because we need a good Mary Jane. Honestly, we need one, because Kristen Dunst shat all over that role. Sam Raimi and his people kind of shat all over that role with the writing of the character, and we need a chick that has the kind of chemistry that Edward Norton and Liv Tyler had. We need a girl like Liv Tyler's kind of acting to be alongside, Mr. Garfield as Peter Parker, because I mean that's what she has to be. She has to be, kind and understanding, but just tough enough when necessary and like believable. Even though the Hulk movies had their problems, the relationship between those two felt very genuine, and we need that in this. Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield, they had that because they're really humping. So when he sees her dead, he's thinking, what would happen if this chick that I'm so in love with right now died? And you feel that when you see them. I know a lot of people are going to just say, because they're desensitized, they're going to say, oh, I didn't feel anything. Okay, good for you. Then don't worry about this part of my review. But to me, I like to put myself into the film and see how I would feel if these things were going on. It felt right. Things didn't feel cheesy like everybody's complaining. So on all accounts, I have to say, it's pretty dope. And the fact that this Peter Parker not only makes jokes, but he's extremely intelligent. And the chick, Gwen Stacy, was actually really smart. That is awesome, because then you get Spider-Man actually using his brain instead of just, uppercutting and hooking and throwing people. Because if there was anything wrong with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, is that he wasn't as smart as the Peter Parker that we grew up reading, And this Spider-Man feels more akin to what we were reading when we were kids, up to now. Even though there's been some missteps, Spider-Man's intelligence has always shown through in most of his stories, So props to them for getting that right. I'm ready for the next one. Bring on the next one. Bring on the next. If they're as good as this, bring on the next, like, whatever umpteen, Spider-Man films that you guys have, because that's how you do it. I don't think that most Spider-Man fans would be mad, at this film. It was done right. Like I said, the biggest misstep is kind of shoehorning the Goblin in there. They could have alluded to the Goblin, but then again, they had to get Gwen Stacy out of there because, she's the very beginning for Spider-Man, and, it's about that time, unfortunately. But, yeah, man, this movie is an A+. I think Cap would be like an S-class because it was just so damn good. This comes right after that. It was really well done. It was fun to watch. I think every beat hit, and I enjoyed that. I think Andrew Garfield, he's pretty damn confident, and he's a good Spider-Man and a good Peter Parker. I like him in this role. I didn't have an issue with him, whereas in the first one, I kind of was like, In this one, I didn't have a problem. It's kind of like Channing Tatum as Duke in Rise of Cobra versus him in Retaliation. By the time Retaliation came around, Homeboy was just a good actor, a way better actor. I mean, some people might disagree, but his acting chops, he's developed acting chops. Whereas when Rise of Cobra was out, he was just another one of those pretty white guys. And he's not even that pretty, So I was thoroughly, impressed with a lot of what was going on. A lot of the direction was just fucking amazing. He's swinging the way that he swings in the games, even more so. You're seeing him web break and stuff, just like in the games. There were a lot of freeze frames that felt like scenes from comics, and I'm like, I need more of that in my Spider-Man movies. I need more of that in my comic book movies. And then, I've been saying for years, remember The Matrix. They explain to you how to make superhero powers work and good. And his spider sense felt like what the Wachowskis would have done with spider sense, where they freeze frame everything and then zoom around through it so they can show you what it was like. Action Man's amp factor in the late 90s, early 2000 Action Man. That's the way it should be. That's exactly how it should be. I think it was early 2000 actually for Action Man. The CG Action Man. I recommend it. If you like Spider-Man, go see it. If you bought the Marvel Legends Spider-Man, you need to see this film. Because not only will it give you some scenes that you could actually emulate if you're into your ACBA or you just like playing with your figures, it just was a good film. You'll be entertained. I mean, if you're going to be one of those skeptics where you just have to be skeptical for the sake of being skeptical, then you're probably going to hate it. Because it's, in comparison to like serious films, and when I say serious films, I'm talking like serious dramas and stuff like that, where it's just drama, it doesn't hold a card to that stuff, especially R-rated drama, because this is a PG-13 drama, you know, action drama. But if you understand what it is you're paying to see, then I think you'll be happy with it. So check it out if you get a chance. I'm Strident. That's been my review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that is my story, and I am sticking to it. I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace outside.